Yo, hello, welcome back. This is the Workshopium. This video is going to be a little bit different today. Okay, so instead of a gaming video, I am actually doing a book review. Same way I actually started this channel, really. And we're going to be talking about the Santaroga Barrier, because I went on YouTube the other day and I was looking around for anybody else who was chatting about this book, and nobody else really was. The way that people talk about this book is... like, there was one guy who kind of got into the plot, but then he got completely off on this entire ramble about MGTOW. What the hell? Bullshit. I was like, what the hell am I looking at? But no, so... my name is Gerald, and I'm going to just kind of introduce you to this story. It's called the Santaroga Barrier. I wish I could hold the book up for you, but in reality, I read it on here, my little reader. And the copy I was sent, well, as you can see, doesn't even have the correct cover. Or it's got a science fiction magazine cover instead that it happened to be in one time in the 60s. Most people know Frank Herbert for Dune. That is like his quintessential work of it that he started, but I actually started reading with this book, The Santaroga Barrier. It talks about a psychologist who goes out to the small town of Santarouga, where he meets a girl, and it's like a perfect trap, you know what I mean? He's emotionally invested in the girl, he wants to be with the girl, but yet there's something about this girl that is keeping him away. There's something about it that is keeping him apart from the society. Does that make sense? And he's basically been hired by his university to do a marketing survey of this area. Now, the people already know what he's there to do before he gets there. And that kind of gets into the theme that Santaroga is a walled garden, a walled kingdom separate from the world. And there's some very unusual undertones the deeper you dig into it. So, for example, all the prices of gas in Santaroga are the same. Now, why are they the same? It's because they order them from different local distributors and such, and thus are able to set the price to what they want. All the people kind of have this unique bond to each other, and even at the end, the psychologist is able to notice there's a difference in between those passing through and those who are Santarogans. And throughout the book, you start seeing people mistake him as a Santarogan more and more, which is very, very fascinating. Forgive me for my hair. I just took a shower, so. This entire story, so there is some talk in it about drug use, for example. This was the 1960s, and they kind of imply that perhaps what the people are doing is drugging each other in order to get them into the same synchronicity with each other. Does that make sense? And there is some talk about the use of LSD, and other DMT and such to expand your mind, which is fascinating subject matter because this was in the heyday of the topic, and it's not too very different from what Frank Herbert was already talking about when he was talking about the spice and the Dune series, for example. But the major difference is this is a science fiction novel that takes place almost exclusively within one location. It's very, very localized inside of what was at the time modern day, which I find fascinating. I haven't really seen anything else quite like it. Of course, the love story goes on, but eventually the story becomes this psychological thriller where it's the main character trying to run against the secrets of the town, because the people of the town are open and brutally honest, but at the same time they are not coming. They don't want to tell you everything that's happening. Does that make sense? So it's very, very hard to make a good grasp on what's actually happening. And I find that very, very interesting to me. Now, this type of format for a video is a little bit different. You may see that I am trying to use my hands, but my hands are like below my desk and the camera's up here. I have done a book review once. I filmed it on my phone. I don't really feel like doing that. I just kind of want to keep things the way I've been running like this gaming channel. But I this book, I have a personal story about this book, okay? And my personal story about this book was that I had two grandmothers, okay? One grandmother was a northern grandmother who was from an old Dutch family, very successful. And the other grandmother was an old southern Irish German granny. And she had Crohn's disease and she couldn't walk far, and she would stay inside her cabin and sew quilts for me when I was a boy. Well, she would read nonstop, and she had a huge collection of like Stephen King and such. I remember, or I one time printed off a copy of Kanoko Nasu's Angel Notes for her and made it into like a little booklet and gave it to her. Or because when I was a teenager, I was like, Kanoko Nasu is the man. This is like the height of fiction. And it's kind of funny how I fell out of reading for so long afterwards. I mean, this reader here got me back into it, and then I got back into writing and doing other things, but still. Oh, but that Southern Granny, she gave me that book. Okay, and then 2 years later, she passed away. And so, whenever I remember reading the Santaroga Barrier, I always wonder, what is the lesson she was trying to tell me? What did she take away so much from this book, that this book, out of all the hundreds of books she had in her small cabin, that she picked out for me specifically? Well, the key here is that the people of Santarouga act as a unit, more or less. They don't realize they're acting as a singular unit, but they are. They more or less conjoin themselves into this entire thing, and there's a place called the Jaspers Co-op, and everything they eat has Jaspers in it. If somebody's passing through town, they'll provide them food without Jaspers, but the people in town eat this food with Jaspers in it, and it gives them like near telekinetic abilities, near or empathetic abilities, like empaths, empathy. Does that make sense? It's very, very interesting. And when the main character comes across it, they more or less reject a foreign element, because any foreign element is like a virus to them, which is also why Santarouga can never really expand. Does it make sense? But it is essentially a tiny bastion of old world America that can never grow beyond its borders, because their reliance on the Jaspers and their communal structure. It's very hard for them to add new people, and it's very hard for other people to truly adjust. And a lot of this makes me think of Appalachian culture, actually, because I grew up in the Appalachian Mountains. It's very a good comment I read online said it's very old and it's very weird, and I would agree. It's very isolating, very self-insular, and nobody talks to each other, but everybody has like this loose concept of clan agreement trading partners. Does that make sense? So like if we're being attacked, we all come together to defend each other because the law isn't going to protect us. Does that make sense? Of course, I've left Appalachia a long time ago and moved to like the heartland of the South now. And so it's just me speaking from memory on these customs. But when I think about the Appalachian culture, the mountain culture of where we did not trust outsiders or any outside influence, it very much reminds me of that, which is very, very fascinating to me. I don't know exactly how I can convey my feelings about this book. I don't want to spoil it for you, okay? I've already said quite a bit about it. I would, as far as Frank Herbert's books, is it on the same level as Dune? I would say that it's a completely different genre, and that's kind of the issue. It is science fiction, but it's also not high science fiction. It's more of a psychological thriller. So we're talking about more of you're going to be focused more on the plot, the relevance of what's actually happening within the context of this tale, and you don't really want to expand beyond that. Does it make sense? And there's a lot of discussion about this idea of the community and the outsider within its own union. And the biggest key here that I took away from it is that there was a very controversial philosopher I read. What was his name again? Oswald Spengler. There we go. Oh, yes, the man who actually influenced the Third Reich and the Germans before World War II even was a thing. And Oswald Spengler had this concept of a cultural organism. And when I read through the Santaroga Barrier, that is the best context I think I can find for it. I believe that it is describing a cultural organism that is like kind of pushing and pulling away at the society as the people keep trying to understand and elucidate it more. Like I said, it's very hard to chat about a book and make a review like this. I would say that I would put it on the same level as I would put their first Dune book, okay? Out of Frank Herbert's writings. For me, it's easily equal to the first Dune book. The second Dune book was lesser, and then God Emperor of Dune is kind of untouched. The God Emperor of Dune is much deeper, but Santaroga Barrier is talking about things that when you read it, you will see happening in the society around you right now, which is very, very curious. I didn't expect that when this read I went through. Because, last time I read this book, okay, I was, 17? 16? It's like, how the hell am I supposed to make an informed decision on society when I read a book written by a professor in the 60s? You know what I mean? It's a book purely about society, purely about human relations, and it's very hard to grasp looking outside that hourglass. Does it make sense? So I would highly recommend it, okay? Not comparing it to any other books aside, very good read, wonderful book. It reads super captivating after the first 30 pages. So it's one of those you have to get into the opening part of the story and it will then hook you. Now, it is a book of its time. So there is a black character and they use the N-word for that character, but they even discuss it in the book as why this is both not negative in the context of the book, which is an interesting conversation, which, be honest, I've seen that in my own life. I mean, my God, man. And when I was working abroad with the sailors, it's like you see this type of dynamic all the time. You know what I mean? So I got exactly what they were talking about. So yeah, man. And Santaroga Barrier. Not a lot of people know about it. Not a lot of people have read it. One of the funny factoids I found on this was I was trying to find a Chinese translation for a friend, okay? Doesn't exist. Flat out. It's one of the few Frank Herbert books that has no foreign translations outside the European languages, which is a damn shame. Because I feel like this book is more relevant, and I almost kind of feel like there was a subconscious push from the publishing world to more or less, how can I say this without it sounding like a conspiracy theory, you know what I mean? I think this book was suppressed. Like, honestly, I do think this book was suppressed. It had limited reprints, but the book criticizes both capitalism and communist structure, so it's not one of those that's like leaning left or right as far as text. It's really all over the spectrum. Does it make sense? Like, there is a moment where the main character more or less kind of implies that, hey, maybe this town is communist, but it's not actually like that. And I found that very, very interesting to see them explore that thing. It was the midst of the Red Scare when the book was written, so it makes perfect sense. So yeah, guys. I'm going to wrap it up there for today. I'm going to pretty much post this with minimal editing. This is just going to be a quick 15-minute rant on this book. I don't know exactly how I'm supposed to format these type of reviews, but I plan to make some more of this type of content in the future because honestly this is the type of content that I've always wanted to be making. I play the games because I like to play games, and this brings a perfect opportunity to play games. But if I can just sit here and chat with you guys and tell you about good books, oh my God. I have so many I could talk about, especially like manga recommendations, light novels, TV shows. I should do a video on that too, shouldn't I? The only issue is I hate editing. Like, if I could pay an editor, I would love that. But, and can I edit myself? Yeah, of course I can. But it's time. It takes up too much time. And if you can't tell, I'm already exhausted. So, everybody, hey, thank you so much for watching through this. Pick it up. Pick up the Santaroga Barrier. Highly recommended. Great book. Look, Martin was a fascinating character. I don't think too much about the main girl, because even though the plot hook of the story is the main character meeting the girl and trying to get with her, it's not really what you're here for. You're here for the psychologist, his reflections on the people, like when he deals with the local sheriff, when he deals with the local, with Winston, the innkeeper, or with all the people. It's that kind of text, which has very unique things, and I kind of feel like part of the society they're talking about is more or less what you kind of see today, which is very, very interesting to me. So, everybody, this is Gerald Rogers from the Workshop PM. I'm signing out. Bye.